The hotel scenes of the Velvet Paw of Asquith novels, also known as the Dubin books, by Thomas Caulfield. Read by the author. Chapter 5, from The Alchemists of Vra, Chapter 25, in which Oscar and Varsivi are chaperoned to a chateau high in the Alps of the Marlies Mountains, which leaves them feeling more uncomfortable than if the Alps' pointy bits were physically inserted into them. They passed beneath a stone archway and entered an exquisitely manicured winter courtyard where a gardener was mowing some snow. There were ice sculptures shaped like trees and a fountain with frozen water. The chateau looked more like a castle, though without any pointy bits and with more snow. Oscar and Varsivi shared a glance. It looked like the sort of place one had to book several lifetimes in advance and take out a mortgage to cover the deposit. Several animals weighed down with jewellery skied from the chateau's entrance. They laughed expensively while their riches sparkled in the sun. The Dododocet bade them good morning before striding up the chateau's steps. A well-rugged attendant at the top of them bowed so severely that he lost balance and fell over. Oscar considered helping him up before realising he probably couldn't afford to. The Dododocet marched into the chateau's innards, which turned out to be as spectacular as its outards, though with less snow and mountains and sky. Chandeliers hung like frozen rain in hallways that smelt of smoke-stained oak. The carpet upon which they trod was red, at least a paw thick, and probably still the original. Upon pedestals stood suits of armour, with halberds held to attention should they be needed. When they passed elegant rooms, Oscar and Varsivi glimpsed animals relaxing and reading and smoking and dining. Some were deep in conversation, others not so inclined, and a few were caught in indignant combinations of both. Regardless, they appeared comfortable in their palatial surrounds, unlike Oscar and Varsivi, who shared another glance that quickly deteriorated. At a door, the Dododocet stopped and knocked. It opened to reveal a room similar to those they'd passed. Amidst murmur of conversation and chinking of glasses, soft music played through air smelling of vanilla and baking. The Dododocet stepped aside for Varsivi. Hesitantly, she entered, but before Oscar could follow, he pushed in front. Posh animals looked up and smiled at the famous bard and his beautiful guest. Their expressions fell, however, when noticing Oscar's grubbiness followed. With a sort of expensive efficiency, a waiter bowed and fell over before getting up and ushering the Dododocet and Varsivi to a table. After orders were given, the waiter bowed, fell over again and scrabbled away. Oscar stood awkwardly, waiting for some semaphore. Several patrons glared as though he were coated in sick, and one gagged as though about to be. "Why do they keep falling over?" Varsivi asked, watching the waiter crawl between tables. "It's a traditional thing," the Dododocet said. "It implies a gratitude to serve animals like me so overwhelming that they lose consciousness. They faint. Yes, it demonstrates our worthiness through a distinct lack of their own." "But that's dreadful." "Well, Plempt did try and remove such customs during their tourism campaign, but it didn't have much effect." "Why not?" "Because their gratitude in serving animals like me is so overwhelming that they lose consciousness." He looked at Oscar. "You can sit in there," he said, waving a paw toward the kitchen. "I'm sure they have a shelf you can stand under. In an establishment such as this, of course, none of them will be wonky, which you might see as a promotion of sorts." Oscar scowled at nearby tables before doing the same at the Dododocet and Varsivi, lingering for some time on the latter. "Oscar must sit with us," Varsivi said, "in case I get hungry." "That, my dear, is what waiters are for." "And if I need sticky tape?" "Again, waiters." She leant forward. "The Dododocet, this might sound silly, but I find these animals rather intimidating." He chuckled. "Miss Varsivi, I can assure you that your beauty alone renders you far above them. That's nice, but I'm not certain I could think of pertinent questions about your greatness without Oscar here to make me feel more comfortable. The Dodonacea glanced at him. His presence makes you feel more comfortable? When she nodded, he sighed. Very well, he said. Sit there, cat, but don't make any sudden moves. Animals of this establishment are used to the finest things in life, so they will not take kindly to the presence of the worst. Now look here, said Oscar. Again, Varsivy interrupted. So the Dodonacea, do you come here often? Well, it's a quaint place, certainly, he said, as much to irritate Oscar as to impress her. It's dreadfully exclusive and unbelievably expensive. But then again, so am I. Oscar began saying something when the Dodonacea spoke over him. These animals are all fabulously rich, Miss Varsivy, and don't have much to do with the dreariness of the ordinary world, other than to make money from it, don't you know? But you do, said Varsivy, determined not to let Oscar interfere. You lower yourself regularly to the world of mere mortals. Yes, but only because I'm so generous that I insist on sharing my talents with those who have none. Oscar folded his paws and scowled. A grave-looking animal at the next table held a napkin to her nose and scowled also. I've been in a fight, all right, he growled at her. She put a paw to her chest as though having never heard anything so outrageous. He was about to ask whether she wanted to be in one when the Dodonacea interrupted. He flashed a smile at her before snarling at Oscar. Do not, he growled, even think of speaking to these animals, Duvin, for you are so far out of your depth that you have already drowned. Oh, shut up, said Oscar, having had enough of the cat's artificially permed mane and his armour-plated fur. He felt worthless in comparison, which afforded an audacity he was keen to spend. If the Dodonacea brought them here to impress Varsivy and make him feel inadequate, then he could suffer the consequences and take them home in a presentation box. I've just about had enough of you, he said. I think you're confusing yourself with a deity, which is ridiculous considering they generally have more personality and less perm. What's more, you were about to thump that dog outside, so you're no better than me anyway. You're lucky that I didn't make the rest of you all smeary too. The Dodonacea's eyes narrowed. I was the one who saved you, remember? If I hadn't stepped in when I did, you'd now have more holes in you than certain expensive imported cheeses. Oscar humphed. I was doing perfectly well until you stuck your big stupid paw in. There was a laugh. You were gnawing your own tail. Had I not removed that ticket inspector when I did, you would now be as tailless as you are earless. Well, that's as hypocritical as anything I've heard, considering your tendencies to rile entire nations. Have you forgotten that politically attired dog at your stupid recital party? He leant closer. I've now prevented you from getting into 2 fights. If it happens a 3rd time, I shall have to speak to your mother. Well, I recall that ticket inspector being rather insightful when it came to yours. If you don't revise your attitude, dodo thingy, I'll take you down so many pegs you'll be on the floor. Well, you couldn't even reach my level to try, you stupid animal. Oscar stood. Then I shall harass you to such a degree that you'll be thrown out of this place forever. The Dodonacea stood also. That doesn't matter, you silly animal, considering I own 3 chateaux already. Varsivy stood too. That's enough, she cried. Stop this. No more. This is not how respectable animals act. Her words cut through tension surgically, leaving them to realise the room had fallen silent and everyone was watching. There was a small cough of disapproval from somewhere, followed by a discreet clearing of throat.